Is trauma a Goyish notion rather than a Jewish one? So I think back through 3,000 years of Jewish texts, from the Torah to the Bible to the Talmud, and it's all stored up here just on instant recall, the ongoing rabbinic commentaries over the past 2,000 years. You don't find a lot about trauma. I think trauma is pretty much a psychological term developed over the past 120 years. And I don't think there's so much about trauma in the Jewish tradition and the Christian tradition. I remember my family moved from Avondale College in New South Wales, Australia, in May 1977 when I was 11, to Pacific Union College in the Napa Valley in California. Both Seventh-day Adventist colleges. But the way people talked was very different. When I came to California, I suddenly noticed people around me describing me as insecure. Now, I was insecure, and I was just as insecure in Australia as I was in California. And I was just as low down on the social status pole in Australia as in California. But in California, people were much more influenced by psychological thinking. I think more people have gone to therapy. And not as many people proportionally go to therapy in Australia compared to California. Also in California, there weren't as many Aborigines around, nor koala bears, nor kangaroos. So moved 3 years past our coming to California, and in 1980 my father was kicked out of the Seventh-day Adventist Church ministry. In 1980, I was 14, and the people around me, some of the people around me said, "Oh, Luke's going to be so devastated by this, he's going to be traumatized by having his father dismissed from the Seventh-day Adventist Church ministry." And I immediately accepted this, because I've always been willing to do almost anything for attention. So, I am traumatized. And I'm miserable, and I'm going to hate the church. And I just had a miserable 9th grade with this kind of victimhood mentality. I got a 1.2 grade point average my first semester. I failed 2 classes. I got a D average. It's pretty miserable. So I've been following this discussion on sexual abuse and trauma. So trauma doesn't really play a role in the text of the Jewish tradition or in the text of the Christian tradition, and I suspect not in the text of the Islamic tradition or any traditional religion. It's a psychological term. So now we have children who are taught, they should feel traumatized by all sorts of different types of abuse, from being yelled at to being spanked to being sexually abused, which, as far as I'm concerned, does seem extremely traumatic. So I'm reading this post. Imagine if our grandparents who'd gone through Auschwitz, there'd been this cottage industry of grievance mongers around them. None of them would have picked themselves up to remarry, raise families, create successful businesses, and put the past behind them. They would have been taught to dwell on the past, to wallow in it, to think of themselves as victims. This type of psychobabble is not found in Torah, which is one of the reasons the Orthodox community largely rejects it.